Hi there. I didn't notice you. I see you've come to ask about British America and the new colonies. Well, you've come to the right place.
Welcome to Mr. Miller's class, pre-Columbus to 1877. This is Chapter 3, British Colonies. Part 4, New Colonies. Gender in colonial America.
So how did the Puritans react to threats from inside the colony itself? How did gender play a role within the colony and within the religious orders of the Puritans? More to the point, how could something so seemingly small as a public preaching turn into a theological schism? These are just some of the questions which contribute to the historic thought. How did gender play out for the lives of people living in colonial America? And how, really, did these major events contribute to the problems or solutions of the colonists?
What role did gender play among the Puritans of colonial America? In early colonial America, women were expected to be reticent, subservient, and taciturn. The Puritan men forced women to exhibit this ignoble and obedient behavior because the men believed that strict societies promoted proper religious doctrine and led to salvation. To go against these societal norms would be detrimental to the foundations of their proper and just society. This was also considered to be against the will of God. The disagreement itself is not just an argument based on religion. In what ways did Anne Hutchinson break gender norms of the Puritan Church? So what do we know about Anne Hutchinson? Anne Hutchinson was born the daughter of a theologian and was well versed in the Bible. However, all Puritans living in Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1637 were required to read and understand the dogma of the Bible. For Hutchinson, she is accused of holding private prayer meetings, disturbing the Commonwealth, and doing things unbefitting for her gender role in New England's Protestant society. Although the trial itself can be perceived as a trial simply over religious heresy, the argument still stands out as a greater moment of dissent over gender inequality. How much power did women really have in Puritan society? At this point, Hutchinson has caused a great deal of social disorder to the New England colony. At a time when women were forbidden to speak out and be vocal, Hutchinson was caught holding prayer meetings in her own home. In Protestant New England, this is considered a serious crime. During the trial at Newtown, Hutchinson speaks on her own behalf, with Governor John Winthrop questioning her first at the stand. She was forced to explain her actions to an eager, ready-to-convict court. Hutchinson is faced having to defend her own case against the discrepant Governor Winthrop. The governor asks Hutchinson whether or not she has committed the acts in question. Hutchinson's testimony, as perceived by the judges, is both garrulous and loquacious. So you might ask yourself, what primary sources do we actually have? Well, we've got John Winthrop's journal, his actual diary from the 1700s. And not only can we recall some of the political and religious motivations he might have had, but not only that, we can see that John Winthrop was really threatened by Anne Hutchinson's gender. So John Winthrop's journal is a great example of how many men viewed their ideal Christian society in Puritan New England. So what other primary source documents do we actually have? We have the trial itself from November 7th, 1637. Here's a quote from the trial where Hutchinson was accused of causing trouble within the colony. Governor Winthrop: Mrs. Hutchinson, you are called here as one of those that have troubled the peace of the Commonwealth and the churches here. You are known to be a woman that hath had a great share in the promoting and divulging of these opinions that are causes of this trouble, and you have spoken diverse things that we have been informed very prejudicial to the honor of the churches and ministers thereof. Governor Winthrop later asks, "Why do you keep such a meeting at your house as you do every week upon a set day?" And Hutchinson's response, "It is lawful for me to do so, as it is all your practices. And can you find a warrant for yourself and condemn me for the same thing?" However, the truth is that her testimony is quite eloquent, and possibly even her emotions are better reserved until Hutchinson claims that she has the power to know who will and will not find salvation. How did the effects of Puritan intolerance influence life in colonial America? The English Protestant Reformation sought to abolish all things that promoted false idolatry and worship. Protestants destroyed examples of falsehoods through acts of iconoclasm. Saints were taken down in churches, and the fundamentals of the religion that were believed to reinforce salvation were promoted as the only true means of worship. Books were translated from Latin to English so that all the worshippers could read the holy words of the Bible. For Puritans, they saw the religion as bringing a return to the most important aspects of Christianity that focused on making a closer connection with God and therefore closer to salvation. Through the religious teachings of John Calvin, Puritans came to believe that only a select few were actually predestined to be saved. How did religious conservatism clash with female agency? Anne Hutchinson's ideas were considered unorthodox to other Protestants in Massachusetts Bay Colony. The New Englanders wished to worship in a more strict religious manner than their predecessors in England. They had felt that the English reforms had not gone far enough to provide a better path to salvation. More extreme religious theology, not persecution, is what drove the Protestants to the New World. Women teaching religion was viewed as detrimental to a newly formed society that was already struggling and suffering to stay alive. What internal and external influences negatively impacted Puritan society? The colonists struggled to thrive, obstructed by internal and external strife. The external strife of harsh winters and bouts of starvation, pestilence, criminality, and Indian raids all threatened to destroy the colony's fragile state. Colonists found it easier to blame others for their own societal problems and changing social dynamics, rather than view the problems for what they really were. Infighting among the colonists was common, and internal differences in the population easily allowed the colonists to falsely justify their own disparity and shortcomings on seemingly small religious schisms. Was it Puritan, though, like a derogatory term kind of used against that Christian establishment? I mean, weren't they really like religious dissenters in their own like Protestant right? How did the Puritans respond to religious dissent? So you might ask, what did happen to Hutchinson? Well, many of the colonists, including Hutchinson, had moved away from New England and towards Rhode Island with a feeling of intransience and without reciprocity. In a small community like that of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, there was no room for internal disturbances that could destroy the sanctity of the society that the colonists had worked so hard to build. Any religious dissent was seen as corrosive and disruptive. How was religion used to justify the Puritans' actions? Both gender and religion played an important role in the outcome of the trial. Hutchinson challenged the idea of religiosity and gender roles in the religious order. Other ministers, such as John Cotton, challenged the notions of salvation in Puritan society. For the majority of the New England Protestants, however, the only path to salvation was through what they called the Covenant of Grace. What changes occurred as a result of Hutchinson's actions? So, how does gender factor into this religious trial? Well, Hutchinson may have helped spread Cotton's ideology of salvation through work. For the select few, the only true path to retaining salvation in the afterlife was through hard work and through their own actions. In doing so, she inadvertently set forth a path that would challenge the role of gender and religion in early colonial America. For violating social norms and preaching unorthodox ideas, Hutchinson was banished from the Massachusetts Bay Colony.